Good morning. This Today I have the privilege of speaking with director and co-writer of starring Jerry as himself, Lawrence Chen. Thank you so much for being with me this morning. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for having us. We're super excited to be here and talk about the film.
So one of the things I like to do with films is not to know too much of what I'm getting into. And I think for audiences, it's going to be important for them to really go on this journey with themselves, to really discover, what Jerry's going through. Because I know for me, as I'm watching it, it was really fun to kind of get into that mystery of what's really going on, what's real, what's
Mhm.
not, and and really kind of be blown away by the end, and for many reasons, which again, but we'll keep it a little bit vague because we want people to enjoy the film the same way I did. Tell me a little bit about it, what you can tell me, what we want to tell people, and yeah, let's start with that.
Yeah, I think, the what is the film about is sort of, really ingrained with like how I discovered what it was about. And, this whole journey kind of began about a year and a half ago when my line producer, John Shu, who I've been working with for about 10 years on commercials, calls me and he's like, something insane has just happened. And I was like, did you just lose a location or an actor? Like, what's going on? He's like, no, my father, who was an ordinary immigrant dad, kind of living in Florida, retired, has become an undercover agent for the Chinese police. I'm like, I'm sorry, what did you just say? And and he's like, yeah, this is serious. Like, that's what he's telling me. I need you to help me go find out what happened. And I was like, okay, I'm in for the ride, just as you were. And we go down to Florida and we begin interviewing Jerry, who is my producer's father. And Jerry begins telling us that he's an agent in a money laundering investigation, and he went and did surveillance on banks and like took secret photos and wore a wiretap to talk to bankers. And the entire time sort of kept this secret from his family. And his story just gets more and more fantastic. And I'm sitting here being like, there is some sort of documentary here about sort of
Of
the
course.
crazy things that happened. Of course, there's a movie here. And then we sort of began thinking about, how does this movie play out? It's a documentary, everything's already happened. How do you go and recreate what
Hmm.
happened? And you'd have to hire an actor
Hmm.
to play Jerry. There's only like two guys in Hollywood that are like 60, 70-year-old Asian dads that could play Jerry. And so we've always wanted to make sort of interesting filmmaking choices. So we were like, Jerry, would you like to play yourself? And he was like, yes, only if it's a spy film, because I felt like James Bond, I felt like Jason Bourne, and I want the audience to feel the same way. And of course, I just wanted to be in a spy film. So that's what we did. We went and just sort of began making this documentary that ends up transforming into a bit of a spy film. But ultimately, it's about an immigrant that's sort of searching for the American dream.
So when you say that, you wanted to make really a spy film, but you talk about how you knew that you had a documentary in your hands. Did it start first maybe as the idea of just doing a documentary, and then it kind of evolved into more of a hybrid with kind of a feature film, or how did that come about?
Yeah, yeah. The beginning, honestly, what John and I were trying to do is just find out the truth.
Oh
Like,
yes.
what is going on with his father? What is he telling us? Is this all real? And then after sort of hearing it from the horse's mouth and then seeing all the evidence that was sort of there, we were like, this is actually real. And then, we've always wanted to be narrative sort of fiction filmmakers, but this kind of just had to be a documentary because it was so real and so present. And the choice to go and kind of transform it into a fiction film was really, this is the best way we can think of to
Hmm.
tell this story and make it intriguing and surprising and unexpected for audiences that are watching it. And we were lucky that Jerry is able to sort of carry this film, his performances, and not just be the subject of a documentary, but be kind of the star of his own movie.
So well, that's one of the interesting things about it for me was, for you as as a filmmaker. how was it working with somebody who had experienced those things, and maybe even now we're taking it to another level of a spy film. Was how was it working with Jerry, in other words, as an actor?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I think that, he during the interviews, I saw something in him, and I don't know what it was. It was sort of just it was both a stage presence and a lack of awareness of cameras that allowed him to sort of just like really be himself. And he performs perfectly as your like stereotypical immigrant dad who's like this, hardworking, reserved, introverted guy. But the way he does it, there's so much nuance there
Hmm.
that I don't even know if I'm watching a documentary or a fiction piece as I'm making it. So, you know, talking with him, it's like going through all the experiences again of being this sort of undercover agent. For him, it's like, is that traumatizing for you? Is that
Hmm.
a sort of crazy experience for you to have to relive? But for him, it was part of this sort of cathartic process and how he sort of was able to like really register everything. And he almost he almost took it on as like, I'm going to play a part and I'm going to play a character very much like myself. And I'm going to use that to sort of get through all these experiences and sort of draw from what happened to me. But I'm simply just playing a part and I'm going to have a good time doing it. So that was sort of the approach that he took. And so as a director, I was like, great, let's sort of just embrace this and kind of go with him on this journey and sort of give him this incredible experience
Hmm.
to relive.
Yeah, it would seem sometimes a little difficult to kind of have to go through that again, and to really retrace your steps. That's it's but in a way that it's important to share with the world. And speaking of which, what is it like for you to do? Kind of, it's interesting because we always see the immigrant story usually from the beginning, when things are really really rough, and they make it, they don't make it, in that route. But this is kind of, we're looking at the tail end, something a little different. And I think that while it is a Chinese immigrant story, I can see that with my Mexican dad, and I can see that with other cultures and their families experiencing a very similar thing. Can you talk a little bit about making that?
Yeah, yeah. This, like I said before, you saying those words makes me so happy that we're able to sort of translate this very kind of specific story into kind of this universal idea that this is everybody's immigrant dad,
Mhm,
and like you said, all stories are about the beginning of where you're young and you're full of hope, and America is this land of promise that you come to. But the real question is like, what is the American dream?
mhm,
You know, have have you ever turned to your parents and asked them, did you achieve everything you came
yeah,
here for? And that that is the question of this film. It's like, what is the cost of coming to this country and kind of working your entire life, and what is the cost of the dream at the end of the day, and what is
mhm,
that dream? And some people get it and some people don't. But for Jerry and a lot of immigrant parents, the dream, their own dream, may not be specifically fulfilled, but they were able to raise children here, and you and me, and
mhm,
give them the ability and the choice to go make movies or talk about movies, and give them the freedom to do that. And that is always sort of this remnant of the American dream that they have kind of achieved. But it's kind of hit or miss if you were to ask them upon landing, What is it that you
Mhm.
wanted? Did you get that?
Yeah,
And sometimes you don't, and sometimes you lose it. So that's kind of what this whole thing ultimately is about, is sort of like, what is the American dream? Did you ultimately achieve it?
it's interesting you mentioned that because I think, as a one of the scenes towards the end, I started thinking about that exact question, and it no longer became about Jerry's actual um story. To me, it actually more became, it's like, okay, but he has four sons that are different stages in life and are set up in the United States the way I think any dad would want. I was like, so I was like, so does this even mean anything to him, as far as like, is it just an experience, or did it really hurt him that much? And because to some degree it's like, I think he's successful, but it's such an interesting conversation to have at the end, and I'm glad that it was able to spark that. And so I think, what I want to ask you is, were there any reflections on with the sons as you're working with them, about maybe them doing a little bit more for him during that time? Because I mean, I'm a victim of it myself. I'm busy with my own life. Sometimes I don't call my mom every week, and it's and then I get the angry phone call. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, the whole process was sort of this sort of self-reflection of this family, and figuring out, how did this happen? How did, you know, how did he become a undercover agent without us even knowing that this happened? Even though somebody's nearby, somebody might have been living with him for a little bit at the time. And yeah, these guys all have their own lives, and that's what dad was able to provide them. And over the course of making it, my job as sort of this outsider processing the same type of thoughts is, who is at fault here?
Hmm.
How did this happen? I don't know the answer. I want you guys to sort of figure that out for yourselves. And I could see over the course of filming that these brothers were really trying to figure that out, and the realization dawning on them that we have our own lives and we're all busy, and there's always this excuse of, I can't, or I later, or I don't have time.
Yeah.
And I think all of them realize that everyone is at fault here.
Hmm.
you know one of our goals is literally, call your parents after this film. um, so it really was something that I wanted the sons to really think about over the course of making this thing, and hopefully we sort of have addressed it to some degree in the film. But you know American Dream is sort of one component of this film. The other component is like, what do we do, you and I, as sort of similarly aged adults? What do we do as we care for our aging parents now? We're suddenly caretakers and providers to people who were once those to us. How do we now?
Hmm.
We're barely adults ourselves. How do we
Yeah.
navigate kind of having dependents that maybe aren't just children, but are sort of aging parents? What do you even do? So it is a reflection for us as filmmakers at this age to figure out, what do we do? How do we navigate these sort of uncharted waters for us?
Yeah, there's very key moments that really struck me, and I felt really bad. There's one moment when one of the sons actually kind of even looks over at his phone, but just kind of glancing, just kind of like, oh, whatever, just kind of just goes on with what he's doing. Another time, I think there was a phone call. I was like, hey, I'm really busy, Dad. I'll call you back. And he's trying to get a little bit of help. Or when he's just giving him the food, and then I mean, and then it made me reflect, like, yeah, sometimes when I call my parents, like, hey, how are you doing? I'm doing great. And it's like, okay, I'm good, doing good, cool. And then you don't really ask any more questions to kind of follow up. And like you're saying, it does bring up that point to to people like us, where it's like, oh, you know what, maybe, hey, I need to be a little bit more careful, a little bit more detailed the way I ask questions. And because they probably have something going on. We just
Most
don't.
likely.
Yeah. And being that they're our parents,
Yeah.
they're not gonna tell us, but I mean, the some of the choices you made in the film were very impactful. They're very small, but as far as like the grander scheme of the story, but man, did they make me reflect on the way I interact with my parents, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, no, of course. It was these little moments that were all true based on how the brothers kind of their account of everything, where just like a quick glance at the phone, it's all in Chinese, like whatever, it's fine, whatever's going on, or it's like, hey, I can't talk now, I'll talk later.
Hmm.
At these potentially pivotal moments where you could ask the deeper questions like, what's going on right now? And it's a double-edged sword though, it's the brothers kind of just like, you know walking through daily life without kind of probing deeper into what's going on with their parents, but it's also kind of Jerry's personality as well, and I
Hmm.
think he kind of represents a lot of immigrant dads who have this sort of ingrained pride and sense of patriarchy, and the sense of like, I am the provider of this household and for my family. I don't want to burden my
Right.
children with anything. And I don't want to ask them of anything. And I don't want to, tell them of anything. I'm not sure if that's the case in your family as well, but you
Of
have
course.
the dad figure, of course, the dad figure who is like, oh no, I got it. Don't worry about it. I'm a man. Like it's fine. So it's this sort of double-edged thing. It's like not reaching out for help or not asking, you know, is it okay if I'm an undercover agent? uh, it's a symptom of their kind of view, their outlook on what is family, and who am I in it as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, final question I have for you. I think, for every filmmaker, every movie, every project they work on is a journey of discovery. What have you taken away? What is going to resonate with you about starring Jerry as himself going forward?
Yeah, that's a very complex question. There's a lot to have learned about looking at this ordinary kind of immigrant family, and being able to walk away and sort of be like, that is my family. I did this project because the dad reminds me of my dad. And the easy answer is the same conclusion that you drew, which is like, I want to think about a sort of what is this idea of this American dream, and putting it in my parents' mind that no matter what happened, you achieved it
Hmm.
from us being here and being able to do this.
Yes.
You've achieved it, right? You've come out of whatever situation that you did, and you've given me the gift of being able to tell stories. And in a way, that is a kind of pinnacle of the American dream to some degree. And on the other hand, it's really, like you mentioned again, just calling my parents and be like, hey, what's going on? Not in any way that's accusatory, but it's like, hey,
Hmm.
tell me about your day. What did you do today? And kind of being a lot more alert and more sort of like sensitive to what's going on in their lives. I think that is the ultimate kind of takeaway. Just surface level, call your parents kind of takeaway that I also got away from being a filmmaker.
Yeah, I think overall this would be an amazing film if they have them. If not, you can watch it on your own. But it's an amazing film, I think, to watch with your siblings. And
Yeah.
then because it could spark some discussions in the end. Just to wrap it up, I've heard you guys did really well at the Slamdance Film Festival. Tell us how successful that was.
Yeah, we were kind of blown away. We premiered at Slamdance. We brought Jerry and Kathy and the entire family to come see it for the first time.
Oh,
They had
okay.
never seen it before, so they kind of sat in the theater, and we had two sold out showings. Jerry got two kind of incredible responses, standing ovations for his, bravery in telling the story and his performance. And we ended up winning grand jury and audience, and Jerry won Best Actor for what is technically a documentary. So that one I was really happy about because Jerry never thought he could do it. He never thought he was good. He was just like, I'm just being myself. And I'm like, no, you have something special here. So this festival experience is just the beginning, but it does kind of wrap up for him this long journey that he took, and kind of the fruits of his labor of allowing us to tell his story. And he got to experience kind of the conclusion of that.
Well, congratulations on that. I mean, it's definitely well deserved from my point of view.
Thank you so much.
What's next for the film? I think you guys are heading over to another festival.
Yeah, so we're heading to Santa Barbara. We're gonna be playing actually next week, February 15th at 4:20 p.m. So if you're in the LA area, come on up to Santa Barbara and check it out.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out 100%. I think this is gonna be talked about in the next few festivals and wherever you decide to release it after that. So Law, thank you so much. I do this because I get the privilege to watch films like yours and then talk to you about it. There's nothing better for me. It is a privilege, and congratulations on your success so far and on the great film.
Thank you so much, and thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I hope you have a good one.
You too.